This is CBC Here and Now.
I'm a little anxious to get the test result back because of my position in the community and my own contacts.
Level 4 lockdown in Central.
With long lines and wait times to get tested, tonight we're live from Lewisport.
After a not so great end to the weekend, things are going to stay unsettled for a few days, but the temperatures are finally going to warm up.
The province's Teachers Association says some of its teachers in central Newfoundland are being told to go back into the classroom despite being at alert level 4. And they're not happy about it.
And this is Dr. Fitzgerald's word. It's not mine, it's not the association's. Anyone who can work from home should be afforded the opportunity to do so.
I'm Chair Mead, and I'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. We start tonight in central Newfoundland. 11 new cases of COVID-19 have been added to the outbreak, bringing the number of confirmed cases now to 44. Here and Now's Garrett Berry is live in Lewisport. So, Garrett, what are you seeing out there?
Well, the rapid testing clinic that's been established has just wrapped up another day here in Lewisport. I pulled in around 5, and even at that time, there was a pretty lengthy line of cars waiting to go through the process, stretching out into the street. By all accounts, it was another busy day here, and that's what we've been seeing for some time. The site was established on Sunday, and it was non-stop. Some residents even waited hours in their car to be tested, only to be turned away, sent back home with an appointment time. Deputy Mayor Krista Freak was one of those in that situation.
Test itself, which I had 2 of them, both the rapid test and the other test, were quick and uncomfortable for a moment, but nothing I couldn't handle. And so now I guess I'm a little anxious to get the test result back because of my position in the community and my own contacts. So, to be able to say that it is negative and move on from there and do my part in the community.
With the area slipping back into alert level 4, life has changed again. That means restaurants going takeout only and businesses returning to curbside pickup. In level 4, most gyms, hair salons, sporting activities are shut down too.
I guess it's a lot less busy. People are less on the move. I think people have, like I said, have been very vigilant. I'm sure people are tied to the government website and to Facebook. And if they're like me, you're back and forth to a website seeing if you have a negative result. And so there's lots of things happening. And I also see a lot of outreach. Our MHA has been very active in his collaboration and correspondence with the public. So I think people are kind of hanging tight to see where we are.
The latest measures apply across the region. It's basically everywhere from Gambo to Badger and all the communities north. In these small towns, sometimes rumors spread fast. That's why one resident of Baytona is urging his neighbors not to fall into divisiveness.
Even if it was true, what benefit do you have in spreading that rumor around? All you're doing is hurting the people that are actually affected by this. You need to realize these people are your neighbors, they're your friends, they're your family, or they could be family of someone that you're close to. All you're doing is spreading negativity. Why would you feel compelled to do so? We're in the middle of a storm. We should be coming together and uplifting and supporting all our fellow neighbors, family, and friends who might be affected by this.
Both Pope and Freak were actually waiting for their own test results when they were speaking with us. So you can imagine there's some anxious moments around these communities. But Pope says each negative result that's coming to households here is also bringing a little bit of perspective and relief that, yes, this community and this region will get through this. Garrett Berry, CBC News in Lewisport.
So what are health officials saying about this outbreak? Here Now's Peter Cowan has been looking into this and speaking with the medical officer of health concerned with the issue. Peter, what do we know about how this virus has been spreading?
Anthony, let's start with the good news. All 44 cases that are linked to this cluster have been linked to each other. It's just the first case that they haven't been able to trace back to another case of either travel or an existing case. So that means the community testing and even people with symptoms that are coming forward, well, so far they're testing negative, and there isn't evidence of widespread community transmission in the area.
At this point, we're not finding other people yet who are positive, who don't know where they acquired the infection. So we have been doing the community testing and we have started to get those results back. And so far, no one has been positive for that. And then we ongoing test people who have symptoms, anywhere in the region, and of course in this Alert 4 area. And those people as of yet have not been tested positive for COVID-19. And so far it has still been people connected to the investigation.
To know for sure, the testing continues. The appointments for tomorrow's testing for people who don't have symptoms and want to be tested have already been snapped up. Dr. Monica Dutt says tomorrow they'll reevaluate if they need to keep doing that testing. She says those long waits from the weekend, well, the good news is they should be fixed now.
It was put together by incredibly hardworking staff that really tried to pull together a clinic in a place that hadn't had it before. We did get a really great response, and now based on what we learned in that initial day, we adjusted at our practices, and yesterday went much more smoothly.
So one of the mysteries they still need to solve in this outbreak, is it a variant of concern? They know it's not one of the strains first detected in the UK, South Africa or Brazil, but they're still waiting to see if it could be a B1617 strain. That's the strain that was first found in India. Carolyn?
Thanks so much, Peter. That's Peter Cowan reporting live from the newsroom. Well, the Level 4 lockdown in Central has the province's Teachers Association raising concerns about educators entering the classroom. Tonight, the NLTA is calling out the school board for having a double standard. Here now's Jeremy Eaton explains.
Parts of central Newfoundland jumping to alert level 4. The Newfoundland and Labrador English School District shut down in-class instruction for 2 days. But the NLTA says hundreds of its teachers are still being asked to come into work, and they're not happy about it.
And this is Dr. Fitzgerald's word. It's not mine, it's not the association's. Anyone who can work from home should be afforded the opportunity to do so. Right now at present, that is not what we're seeing in the central region.
NLTA President Dean Ingram doesn't have an exact number. His best guess is that this impacts about 500 teachers at more than 30 schools scattered over central Newfoundland, which means some teachers will have to travel from outside a level 4 zone into one.
What we are suggesting is that when public health determines what is necessary in the area, when public health determines what guidelines need to be implemented in that area, all employees should be afforded the opportunity to adhere to the measures which Dr. Fitzgerald is suggesting. This is a mitigating measure that mitigates risk. Why would you want to accept any additional risk that you don't need to?
The school district disagrees. CEO Tony Stack says having them in the classroom allows them flexibility to teach in class or online based on what the school board decides.
We've been assured by public health that we're safe to open. The schools are safe. We made the decision based on operational considerations about the impact on staff. It wasn't anything related to safety.
In fact, Stack says they didn't even have to close the schools at all, but chose to do so as a precautionary measure.
It's a decision that the district made in consultation with the Department of Education. Public health recommended that schools were safe to open. We decided it prudent to go a little bit beyond that.
Stack says the next step for the English School District is to determine whether or not that 2-day suspension of in-class instruction needs to be extended. He says that's a decision they won't be able to make until tomorrow. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, it certainly wouldn't have been a May long weekend if we didn't see some snow in parts of the island and up across Labrador as well. It certainly woke up to that on Monday in some places, and temperatures much cooler as well. But those temperatures have rebounded today quite nicely. We do have some unsettled conditions, though, for the most part. Area of low pressure to the north and a cold front. Temperatures before that cold front swept through were fairly nice across Labrador, but that temperature has since dropped. And then we've got some showers working their way across the island as we speak, and that will generally be the story as we head through the overnight tonight. Take a look at these temperatures today. So 11 degrees in Cartwright, 16 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 9 in Lab City, and the temperatures into the teens for most of the island. Badger saw a high near 17 degrees today. However, even though the temperatures were warm, the winds were definitely something to talk about today. 76 km/h wind gusts in St. John's, similar anywhere from 50 to 60 for most of the island. And then we've got those winds gusting 70 to 80 across Labrador. Now, as we head through the night tonight, we are going to see a little bit of a drop in those winds into the morning hours on the west coast. And then those winds will stay up in the east through the day tomorrow. We'll see a little bit of relief, but into Thursday, that's when the next wind maker, I should say, will move in. See some unsettled conditions as well, but I will get into all the details when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, now to news from the courts. Crown prosecutors read victim impact statements in Supreme Court this morning, recounting the toll Stephen Miller's murder has taken on his parents. Lawyers also argued over how much time Paul Connolly should spend in jail. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the 2016 killing. Here now's Heather Gillis reports.
Conley, Chesley Lucas, and Calvin Kenny killed Miller during a violent home invasion and robbery, setting his house on fire before dumping Miller in a Kelligrew subdivision. Today, prosecutor Tanis King read victim impact statements from Miller's parents. In 2017, his father wrote he was living a nightmare, while his mother, Carol, says she's lost a sense of safety, saying, quote, "My Stephen was my everything." Conley was originally charged with first-degree murder, but pled guilty to manslaughter, robbery, and forcible confinement in 2018. His co-accused, Lucas and Kenny, also pled guilty to the same, plus arson. The pair were sentenced to 12.5 years, which both men appealed. Kenny later died in a New Brunswick prison, while Lucas's appeal was rejected. Now, Connolly's lawyer, Mark Grushi, argued his client should spend between 9.5 to 10 years behind bars. Grushi says Connolly is a survivor of sexual violence from his youth, and despite the 40-year-old's long rap sheet with 172 prior convictions over the last 26 years, Connolly himself almost died in the attack and lost half a kidney. Grushi believes he can be rehabilitated, saying hope never dies. Meanwhile, prosecutors want to see Connolly put away for 10.5 to 11.5 years. They say Connolly hasn't been remorseful for his role in the killing, calling him a prolific offender with a significant record. Connolly also addressed the court today, apologizing for the hurt and pain he's caused. He says the killing shook him and that it changed him. He told the judge he hopes to get a better handle on himself as life goes on. Paul Connolly has been in prison for 5 years now. Tomorrow, he's going to learn just how much longer he's going to be behind bars when Justice Donald Burridge delivers a sentence at 10 a.m. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
A 67-year-old man is recovering in hospital after a frightening and miserable May 24th weekend. The man went trouting but got lost Sunday and the weather turned awful. Stephen Ryan is the deputy mayor of St. Mary's and he initiated the search. So Stephen, you have a personal connection to the missing man. When did somebody notice that something was wrong?
I returned home on Sunday evening around 6:30, and when I came to the door, my wife was on the phone and she handed me the phone, and my next door neighbor, which was my relative, also said that her husband went fishing that morning at 9:30 and wasn't after returning, and she wondered would I go look for him. So I said yes, and I tore off in the road in the direction where she told me where he was, and before I got to the location where he usually goes, I found his vehicle parked on the side of the road. So I stopped there, and the fog was starting to come in, and her brother was also at the site. And I said, I'm going to have to call a local fire department. I said, just so we could get an hour in, if he's anywhere near, we find him. The fog rolled in, and you couldn't see 50 feet from where you were to. And around 9 o'clock here, it started to rain. And it rained from that till 2 o'clock. And we decided at that time to come back in the morning at break it down and start over again.
How did people actually find the man?
During that night, when a group of the firemen left the road, they came across footprints that were a long ways from where he left his vehicle. And they brought the dog in at it was around 1 o'clock, and the dog was in tracking for about an hour, but was no success. So we kind of stressed the next morning when we went to that area, and we checked some cabins. He was in no cabins, and we kind of stayed in that area. And one group of men, 2 men left this community, and they're familiar with the area too. They went to another cabin in the area, was even farther in. One of the men looked and he see the gentleman in the distance, and he said he just assumed it had to be him. When they went to get him, sure enough, it was the gentleman that we were looking for.
Lucky man. Can you give us a sense as to how he's doing now after that horrible weekend?
Right now, it's not I'd be giving you a bad update, but he's recovering, but it's going to be a slow recovery.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Listen, obviously, it was a very, very big search, and it worked out in the end. And let's hope that he recovers well. Appreciate your time. Thanks for talking with us.
Yeah, I'd just like to include. I'd like to thank everybody. It's the first time I was ever involved in anything like this, and what I see in the communication and the rovers and everybody. We have a good organization here in Newfoundland and the local volunteer fire department here in Riverhead. If you're picking a place to get lost, it's a good place to get lost, because I think there's a good chance we're going to find you.
All right. Listen, a great shout out for the people who worked to find this man. I'm glad it worked out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the interview.
Well, now to some sports news. Alex Newhook of St. John's has another career highlight. He scored his first goal in the NHL over the weekend with the Colorado Avalanche during Game 3 of the playoff series with St. Louis.
Nice pass ahead for Newhook, and the rookie waits to the front, and Nichushkin couldn't get it. Now a dry rebound, and they score! Newhook!
It was 12 minutes into the second period. Newhook scored his first goal in his NHL career, giving Colorado a 2-goal lead over St. Louis. But now Newhook is out with an injury. In Game 4, he left the game with a lower body injury after he was pushed to the boards. The Avalanche went on to sweep its series with St. Louis and now moves to the next round. There's no word yet on Newhook's injury and what it means for the next round. Curlers Brad Gushue and Carrie Einarson didn't win a medal at the World Mixed Doubles Curling Championships in Scotland this weekend, but they aren't coming back to Canada empty-handed. The pair did earn a spot at next year's Winter Olympics. They played a bronze medal game Sunday against Sweden, but Sweden took an early lead in the first end and kept it. Canada tried to make a comeback, but lost in the 8th end 7-4. But this event is the main qualifier for the Beijing Olympics. Gushue and Einarson earned their spot on Friday.
Well, the sun did peek out a little bit. Now looks like some cloud covers moved in. It's going to be a generally gray day tomorrow with some unsettled conditions across the province. These winds as well. I'll get into the details coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by Newfoundland and Labrador Tourism. It's time to explore the great wide open. Plan your trip at yourbackyardbeckons.ca.
Time for a look at the weather, and Ashley, I'll be really glad when all of this wind starts to subside. It's getting a bit annoying.
It has been very windy out there for most of us over the last week, I guess, or so. But we will see a little bit of a break in the coming days. But it's not going anywhere, really.
Oh, okay.
Let's take a look at the temperatures across the board. That wind making it feel much worse than it actually is out there. 12 degrees was the afternoon high in St. John's, 14 in Corner Brook, 11 in Cartwright, and 16 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. But I mentioned that cold front, and that has swept through so far. Look at that drop in temperatures, down to 0 in Cartwright, 9 in Happy Valley Goose Bay, and then we still have those temperatures in the teens for the most part for the island. Along the south coast, you're sitting in the single digits right now. Taking a look at the satellite radar, we do still have some showers rolling through. That will generally be the story as we head through the overnight tonight. We'll see the risk of some flurries in the mix in the higher elevations for the southern portion of Labrador as well as the northern peninsula. Again, likely in the higher elevations, but that risk is still there. And we'll see some showers work their way through the west coast and pretty much across the board as we head into the early morning hours with some clearing skies across Labrador as we head through tomorrow morning. And then we watch Lab West in the morning hours. So temperatures tonight shouldn't be too bad. We're going to drop down to the single digits, but mid-single digits, 5 to 8 degrees. Southwesterlies anywhere from 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Now, you will see your winds ease into the morning, and then they're going to stay pretty breezy in the east. Out of the west, those winds will stay out of the west, about 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. The chance of some flurries or showers and then clearing, or staying cloudy rather, for Lab City. Otherwise, temperatures into the minus single digits across most of the Big Land. Now, I do have that temperature around 1 degree for St. Anthony, but again, in those higher elevations, you may see a few flurries. Now, tomorrow, next system will roll through Labrador. There's a good chance you could see some freezing rain in the morning, and then actually the risk of a few rumbles of thunder into the afternoon, because those temperatures are really going to jump up tomorrow afternoon for Lab West. Anyway, some showers will work their way across the Big Land, and then we do have some showers in the morning hours, but by the afternoon things will stay generally cloudy for the island, and then the chance that some showers will move through scattered at times. Better chance will be into the evening and overnight areas for along the west coast. Some heavy rain at times potentially. Now, as far as rainfall amounts go, this takes us through to tomorrow morning. So trace to 5 millimeters of rain. It's tomorrow that we'll see the majority of that rainfall. We could see somewhere between 20 to 30 millimeters in Lab West, and then same thing along the west coast. This will take us through to Thursday morning. So temperatures tomorrow should be into the double digits again, although staying cloudy, and those winds will continue as well, 30 to 50 kilometers per hour out of the west. Into the evening hours, we'll see a little bit of relief. We should see those winds die down just a little bit. Towards central, same thing with those gray skies and the chance of showers. For the south coast, keeping your temperatures into the single digits thanks to a little bit of onshore flow for you. For the west coast, into the double digits again, into the mid-teens. Southwesterlies, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. The morning will stay, those winds will be light, and then they'll ramp up as you head into the afternoon and evening hours. Port Austin have you around 11 degrees and Burgeo at 8. Now for the northern peninsula, you may see a few peaks of sun into the afternoon, but overall the chance of showers will continue for the first half of the day. 6 to 8 degrees for the northern peninsula, anywhere from 8 to 9 for southeastern Labrador. Your winds will ease. And then Mary's Harbor looking at a high near 9 degrees tomorrow. As we head towards Happy Valley Goose Bay, that risk of some freezing rain in the morning again. Not a great chance, but that risk still there. And then that will change over to showers in the afternoon. Look at the temperatures again, like I said, Lab City up to about 16 degrees. So that risk of thunderstorms, isolated thunderstorms possible. And then for northern Labrador, anywhere from around 5 degrees, but you'll note that wind shift as well. So let's look at your forecast. We'll look ahead when I come back.
Well, last week we marked World Bee Day and talked about the importance of honeybees. Well, it's also swarming season. That happens between May and July when honeybees leave the hive to search for a new home. And they can turn up in some pretty strange places, something I know from personal experience. Paul Dinn of Adelaide's Newfoundland Honey has some safety tips if you come across a swarm.
With honeybees, the way they reproduce is to do what's called swarming, and that is actually what the queen that's in the hive now, and about 60% of the bees in the hive will actually leave the hive and go looking for a new home. Now the interesting thing is when the bees do this, they'll usually land up in a tree or against a building somewhere, and it forms like a large, almost looks like a basketball of bees, just solid. And they might find a little crack in the side of the home, and then they can get in, maybe into the eave, and then the bees will start to actually build honeycomb and establish themselves. And that's what we want to prevent. You know, we want beekeepers to learn how to prevent swarming at the first place, but then also if they need to rescue the bees, we want to do that safely. And the beekeeper will come in, and they'll usually bring a hive box or a container, and they'll actually take the bees. If it's low lying, the bees are right here, they'll just place them into the beehive. What's more difficult to do is now the beehive is up in the peak of the roof up there, okay? And they're up, say what, 40 feet? 40 feet in the air. Someone should be doing a risk assessment, and they should be wearing a harness and lanyard so that if they do fall or come off a ladder, or if they're up on the roof, that they're not going to have a fatality or someone getting injured. Contact a beekeeper, but make sure that that beekeeper has the training to safely remove the swarm and not do damage to your property and not get hurt.
Well, thanks to our Heather Gillis for putting that together. And here's another bee fact. The isolated island portion of this province has some of the healthiest honeybees in the world. And that's because there are no deadly parasites like varroa mites.
It's the biggest COVID outbreak since February.
It's still kind of a time where we're very much in the information gathering and investigation mode.
What is Central Health doing to control it? We'll check in with the medical officer of health coming up. Welcome back to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan. It's the biggest cluster of cases the province has dealt with since the outbreak back in February. There are now 44 confirmed cases in central Newfoundland in the last few days. Dr. Monica Dutt is the medical officer of health, and she joins us now. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you.
So you don't know the source of the infection, but have you been able to connect all 44 of these cases, or do we have cases that are popping up with no origin here?
So far, everyone that we've detected who has tested positive, except for the initial person who's still under investigation, everyone else has still been connected to another person. So they've all been contacts of cases. And we have not yet had anyone who has tested positive who were not able to say where the source was, apart from trying to determine where this all initially started.
What does that tell you?
So it tells us a few things. One is that, we do still have, a concern, definitely, that there may be circulating virus because people did acquire it from somewhere, and we're not entirely certain of where yet. We have some thoughts that we're trying to work through, but as of yet, no clear source has been identified. But in other ways, it's also good because at this point, we're not finding other people yet who are positive, who don't know where they acquired the infection. So we have been doing the community testing, and we have started to get those results back. And so far, no one has been positive for that. And then we ongoing test people who have symptoms, anywhere in the region, and of course in this Alert 4 area. And those people, as of yet, have not been testing positive for COVID-19. And so far, it has still been people connected to the investigation. So it's still kind of a time where we're very much in the information gathering and investigation mode. But so far, that is a good thing, that we're not finding any pockets of people who have infection yet who did not know about it. But there's still a lot of testing to be done.
What do we know about how and where people are getting infected?
It's probably a range of different sources, and I'd say we're still kind of piecing together, where the source might have been. And in the end, I think we'll have a nice summary to be able to look at that a bit closely. I think there have been social gatherings that have probably contributed, possibly sporting events. So we're looking through all of that. But at the same time, it's hard at this point to make really clear connections about what exactly the source was for some of the people that we found who are positive.
Over the weekend, we saw long lineups for people who wanted to get tested in Lewisport. Some people, after hours of waiting, ended up going away. Why wasn't there enough staff on hand in order to make sure that everyone who needed to or wanted to be tested could be?
First, just to say thank you for all the people who came out, and also to acknowledge that, yes, it must have been very frustrating to a lot of people who heeded the call and came out and then either weren't able to get tested or waited a very long time. We put this all together. It was sort of between Thursday and Saturday that this all really started to escalate in terms of seeing people who were positive. So it was put together by incredibly hardworking staff that really tried to pull together a clinic in a place that hadn't had it before. We did get a really great response, and now based on what we learned in that initial day, we adjusted our practices, and yesterday went much more smoothly. And we have had enough people that have come forward that for now, for tomorrow, we have already filled our spots for tomorrow. And then we're going to reassess to look at how much more testing, if any, we need to do as we gather our information every day.
Okay, well, Dr. Dutt, I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Our criminal system is not equipped to address sexual assault and sexual violence and intimate partner violence.
The St. John's lawyer says the year-long case against RNC Constable Doug Snellgrove shows the justice system is failing survivors of sexual assault.
What changes does she think are needed? That's coming up. When police officer Doug Snellgrove was found guilty of sexually assaulting a young woman more than a week ago, there was a lot of social media reaction. Many felt justice was served for the woman known as Jane Doe. She had gone through 3 trials over 6 years. She was under intense scrutiny over what happened the night she got into Snellgrove's police car to get a ride home. But other people have questioned how the case could drag on for so long. Caitlin Urquhart is a lawyer and activist in St. John's, and she joins me now. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, after the jury came back with its verdict, you posted a tweet and you wrote, "As a lawyer, I am a part of the colonial, patriarchal, racist system referred to as the justice system. While there are many within the system working to make it as just as possible, the system itself is fundamentally flawed." So what is fundamentally flawed about our system?
That's a great question. So I guess I will start just by indicating that we are going to be speaking about sexual assault. So just if that content is triggering for folks, to be mindful of that. The Canadian legal system is based on a colonial fallacy. It asserts jurisdiction over and legitimate authority on stolen lands. And so this system attains its legitimacy on the basis of white supremacy. That is the sort of macro context of the Canadian legal system, within which we have the criminal justice system, which is a more micro context of this. The criminal justice system or the criminal laws are a codification of the moral standards of the ruling class, which have traditionally been white, Western, Judeo-Christian folks, and therefore the standards that are set out in the criminal code reflect that perspective. And we've seen ways in which these structures that I'm talking about in terms of colonialism, patriarchy, are reflected in the criminal code, with things such as the fact that it was criminal not to send your children to residential school, the fact that it was not possible to sexually assault your wife up until 1982. We have a system where the penalty or the punishment for transgressing the criminal law is imprisonment, so the loss of liberty. The accused's right not to have their liberties wrongfully taken from them end up being prioritized over those of the survivor. And so it's absolutely a devastating outcome, in my view, what Jane Doe has had to endure. And it's really a double-edged sword, because in as many people as she will have inspired and empowered, I suspect that just as many will feel that they cannot, or are not interested in pursuing that path. And I think that continues to confirm that our criminal system is not equipped to address sexual assault and sexual violence and intimate partner violence, unfortunately.
What do you think should change within the justice system?
Everything. I think certainly taking action immediately on the calls to action and calls to justice from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, as well as the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Inquiry, is an important first step. Having more diversity in all aspects, so within the legislature, within lawyers, police officers, the judiciary, absolutely, that's an important part of it.
Is there anything you think that could be done quickly that you think would have made a difference for people like Jane Doe?
So we've seen some success in things such as the Family Violence Court, where perpetrators are required to take responsibility and accountability from the outset, and then they have there's sort of diversion. There's different ways, rather than being imprisoned, to address the harms that they've caused. And I think that having some options and alternatives for survivors to have different ways to address these sort of what are often interpersonal harms would be beneficial, and really ensuring that we're doing that in a way that's trauma informed, that really gives survivors the control over their own processes and how they want to proceed would be something that could be done. I think right now in Nova Scotia, they're looking at restorative justice processes, and that'd be something that I hope that we're considering here as well.
Well, Caitlin Urquhart, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Well, today marks 1 year since the death of George Floyd. Across America, marches and memorials were held in his honor.
Get your neighbor and say, though they slay me, yet will I trust him.
Video of George Floyd's murder at the hands of Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin outraged people around the world. It also led to widespread protests against racism as well as police brutality. Floyd's family is in Washington today to meet U.S. President Joe Biden and to press for legal reforms relating to policing practices and accountability. Well, as I said, George Floyd's death sparked calls for change around the world, and not just in the United States. Today, CBC in Atlantic Canada is kicking off a 3-part series in an effort to shed light on race issues here at home, and we're calling this series Color Bar.
There's been a lot of talk lately about systemic racism, so I thought we should have a discussion about what it is, why it's trending, and if it's even a thing, or a new thing. Now, systemic racism is not new. It's been around for centuries. However, overt racism is still commonplace, although not socially acceptable. Systemic racism is insidious and invisible to most. However, what is new is that systemic racism has entered the mainstream consciousness of white people. Now, for those of us who have experienced systemic racism our whole lives, it's not new. But for those of you who have not experienced systemic racism, it can be a shock. But what I can tell you is the outcomes for black and brown people have been severe and obvious.
Let's consider the facts. Black people make up 3.5% of the Canadian population, but make up 9% of the population in the Canadian prison systems. To put that in perspective, that is a 250% overrepresentation. In Halifax, black people are stopped by police for street checks 6 times more than white people, a 600% overrepresentation. Black people are also 2 times more likely to be unemployed compared to white people, and are 2.2 times more likely to be among the working poor compared to white people.
It has been said that every system is perfectly designed to get the outcomes that it gets. And this means that our systems are perfectly designed to get an overrepresentation of black people in the criminal justice system, to discriminate against them in employment, and to produce poorer health outcomes. For centuries, inequities in power, resources, and opportunities have disadvantaged black people in North America. So systemic racism refers to the systems and processes and structures within our systems that systemically or systematically discriminate against black people. Now, these are a complex interaction of social, economic, and political factors that impact the way we live, work, and grow old. Now, these injustices and inequities are not necessary, and we can dismantle systemic racism in our society. However, it's going to take the collective will to do so.
When Natin Obed was growing up in Nain, the middle of June was still considered ice fishing season. Now he's in his 40s and conditions are quite different.
Obed is the president of Inuit Tapidit Kanatami, the national group representing Canada's Inuit, and the 2020-21 ice season has been an extraordinary one in Nain and all the other communities of Nunatsiavut.
We've been covering this in our series Thin Ice, and tonight Obed shares his thoughts on the changing climate.
We want to be leaders in climate action. We want to also have Canada recognize the urgency that our particular population is facing in relation to climate realities. Inuit Nunagat is changing rapidly, and if there aren't investments in Inuit Nunagat directly for adaptation and mitigation to a higher magnitude than exists now, then we're setting ourselves up for really difficult times ahead. This is in relation to, say, our airstrips, our marine ports, our houses. Almost all of our communities are marine communities, so we're right along the shoreline. Some of our communities are literally falling into the sea. Our world is rapidly changing. It is something that keeps me up at night, and I think a lot of Inuit feel the same way. This is real in a way that it may feel like it's futuristic in other parts of the country. I also want to really stress on how much we use sea ice and how much sea ice is a part of our society and also a part of our road network where we can get to our cabins or get to our hunting grounds or get between community to community. And climate change is rapidly rendering our knowledge invalid. The oral history of and knowledge of our people often can't be used in the same way that it has been by Inuit before the 1970s. So these are the types of things that we are confronting as a society, and it's a really difficult time to navigate through. So we are in this new phase where the way that we transmit knowledge and the way that we talk about our environment and how it's changing is going to be very important. We are going to have to come together as communities and help each other through. And I think of some of the research projects that are happening in Nunatsiavut, especially in relation to sea ice change and monitoring, and thinking about how research and information sharing is part of the way in which we're going to get through this. The other is just to try to figure out how to adapt and do our best to ensure that we are lobbying for the most action at the national and international levels, but at the same time, not give up hope within our communities and continue to try to adapt and do the best we can under the difficult circumstances.
Well, taking a look at the next couple of days across Labrador, looking like we're going to see some snow in the forecast. We're going to continue to see that either mixed with rain or change over to rain eventually through the day on Thursday for parts of coastal Labrador. There's a look at that area of low pressure. In behind that, we're going to see some cooling temperatures again with that risk of snow towards Lab West. Generally unsettled for the island as we head through the day on Thursday, but into Friday it looks like we're going to see a little bit of clearing, maybe some cloud cover through the afternoon, but it does look like the weekend, as we head towards the weekend, is going to be fairly quiet. As far as Labrador goes, though, again, that cooler air will stick around, and the risk of either showers or flurries altogether even, will stick around through Saturday. By the time we get into Sunday, though, bridge of high pressure is going to move in and clear things out. So it is looking like a nice end to the weekend. So taking a look at the temperatures for Thursday, we're going to stay cool into the single digits across Labrador, 2 degrees for Nain, 5 in Cartwright, and then 9 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay with some sunshine. At least for parts of the day. Showers will be the story as well. For Thursday for the island, we're looking at temperatures really bumping up, certainly through central. Looks like we'll reach the 20-degree mark, 20, 21. as your afternoon highs. Again, a little cooler for the south coast into the teens, and then especially for the northern peninsula into the single digits through the day on Thursday. Sunshine at times in St. John's on Thursday, but you are looking at temperatures back up into the high teens. By Friday, we'll see a little bit of a dip, certainly along the west coast. That's just because we're going to see that flow, that onshore flow, and around 6 degrees for Corner Brook. Those temperatures will stay into the single digits across Labrador. Have snow or at least some flurries for Lab West through Friday, and then sunshine for the remainder of the island. Maybe a few onshore showers for the west coast. And then 12 degrees for St. John's as our afternoon high. Taking a look at the next 5 days, we're looking at teens till we get to the weekend. Plenty of sunshine. That's good news there. For Central, similar forecast, but up to 19 by Sunday. And then for the western portion of the island, you're looking at teens Saturday into Sunday and sunshine, and then across Labrador into the teens by the time we get to the weekend, but it is going to stay unsettled. By the time that ridge of high pressure gets there, your temperatures should be up to 15 degrees in the west. I wanted to share this photo. Speaking of Labrador, weekend boat trip to Lake Melville. Thank you to Wyman for that. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Fair bit of power there. What a nice shot.
Beautiful.
Now, I want to quell some panic out there. A quick PSA for you Corrie fans. You may have noticed the show has been airing at a different time. That's a change that came into effect last Monday.
Yes, Coronation Street is now airing at 5 o'clock Island time, Mondays through Thursday, a half hour earlier in parts of Labrador. Fridays, back-to-back episodes begin at 4:30 and 5 p.m. So good news, the Sunday schedule remains the same, no change there.
Right. No need to worry, Corrie is not going anywhere. But we are. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.
Good night.